reminders that the House of Hope is doing a spaghetti dinner and auction Saturday, September 24th. And Sally asked Pastor Wayne to announce this. And so for those of you who need a reminder and who would like to participate in that, I remind you of those items that are on the table in the back of the church. Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts prove acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. When I was little, I spent a lot of time in my grandmother's attic. I loved it. It was a wonderful place. When you went up the steps, you could kind of smell the dust. And it was a treasure trove. It was high above the world. An old Victorian home on West High Street in Red Lion. And there were some windows that faced the front, that faced the street that went by. And the windows, on me as an adult, they come to about here, but as a child, that meant that I was just standing on the threshold of the view out those windows. And I could survey all of my domain from that peak in her old Victorian attic. I could look at all the neighbors' houses, I could look at the ball field across the street, I could look the whole way down to Railroad Avenue in Red Lion. In that attic, I was a giant. I was the queen in her castle. Now, a number of years ago, I went back to that attic as an adult. Somehow it felt ever so much smaller. The ceilings felt lower. The rooms seemed so much narrower. And even those windows, which to me felt vast as a child, seemed smaller. Our own personal size somehow affects our perception of size in general. And to little children, I think oftentimes we who are adult, we often look like giants because they're looking at the world from down here, and we kind of tower, even the short ones of us, tower over them. Like so many things, we can perceive our realities either positively or negatively, like sin in the children's story, where people getting lost can be seen in a negative sort of way. But Jesus reminds us that there's just great rejoicing in the heart of God, great rejoicing in heaven when those who have been lost allow themselves to be refound. We can look up to those greater than life forces in our lives, or we can find them scary. So much in life is good, even blessed. But we read Psalm 14 together this morning, which was not a particularly positive psalm. And it reminds us that there's a lot of scariness out there too. If you look at the words carefully in Psalm 14, it says that there are so many who have gone astray. There are so many who are perverse, who do abominable deeds, who are evildoers, who work terror. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of getting goosebumps already. Even verse 4 of Psalm 14 warns us of society's evils and of fools, who, according to Psalm 14, have no belief in God. They make their own rules, and they do not respect the rights and dignity of others. Psalm 14 verse 4 says, they have no knowledge. All the evildoers who eat up my people as they eat bread, and who do not call upon the name of the Lord. The negative forces that loom so big in our lives and in the lives of our children, oh, they are many. poverty, disease, addiction, so many forms, parental neglect, pollution, poor health, dental care, various forms of abuse. It seems to me that many of these forces are, like the song says, eating up people like bread. These forces are like wicked, abominable giants who can be fearsome and cruel. Now, in any good story, when villains are so villainous, we need a hero, right? We need a champion. Just think about the Bible. We've got the boy David who stands up to the fearsome Goliath. We've got Moses who dares to lead the people away from an oppressive regime under Pharaoh. So it seems to me that we need a champion. And so allow me to propose a possibility for the champion, for that which is right and good and compassionate. And that possibility is grandparents. Many of us who fall into that category. And then allow me to introduce a most interesting character to serve as our model in defeating the abominable meanies of our society. Now I'm going to put in a little advertisement here. We had one advertisement for spaghetti supper. Going to put in another little mini advertisement here. Roald Dahl at one point wrote a book entitled The Big Friendly Giant, the BFG. And wonderful Steven Spielberg has made what I thought was to be a most delightful film called BFG. That's who he is. That's our big friendly giant. And he is going to serve as our model for some of the things that you and I can do as grandparents to be champions for our children and to protect them for the people who would like to, and forces that would like to gobble them up. Here's the good news. Still available for $2.50 at the Bargain Theater on Pauline Drive. You too can go see The Big Friendly Giant if you want. I found it delightful. It was hilarious. It was thought-provoking. I dragged you.
Yes.
Yes, I dragged Rodney, and then I liked it so much, and I thought, oh, I must go take notes because I must know a little more thoroughly what's going on here. And so I dragged our 14-year-old son to it, grandson to it as well. Now, I must confess that neither one of them had that high on their list of things they wanted to do. They each went, you can see that Rodney has survived. Our grandson, he did manage to giggle a couple times in spite of himself, even though he really felt he did not need to be here. So, how can you and I be the protectors of those who need protecting? And how can we learn from this literary character? Now, what you need to know, this guy's, as he says, big and friendly. Notice he's got big ears. I think that's very important for us as grandparents. We need to be willing to listen. Allow our kids to tell us what they need to say, and that maybe they can't tell mom and dad, or they won't tell mom and dad. But what you need to know is that this guy, this big friendly giant, is not the only giant in this tale. He is the hero. He's the good one. He's the one who dares to stand up to the bad ones. The ones who he's the one who insists on protecting Sophie. Isn't it interesting? Her name is Sophie. The Greek for that is Sophia for wisdom. The little girl, you can't see her too well, but she is the heroine of the story. And she, as a child, is also encountering evil in her world and trying to learn how to combat it. And there are lots of bad giants in the film as well. How many of you remember this refrain? from your childhoods. Fee, fi, fo, fum. Help me. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. The writer of Psalm 114 was at all acquainted, or if the person who made the Fee, Fi, Fo, Fum was acquainted with Psalm 14. Well, that's the kind of ugly giants who confront Sophie and BFG, and they stomp around. They are villainous, and they are always looking for beans, B-E-A-N-S, human beings, and they go around and they're, I smell a bean. The big ugly ones, the villainous ones, will say, and the animation is wonderful. They're ugly, they're dirty, they're huge, they're merciless, they're rude. They stomp around, destroying everything in their path. And while they aren't too smart, or at least they don't seem to be too smart, they manage to camouflage themselves. They blend right in to nature's hills and valleys. They blend right in to trash heaps and garbage dumps and wild and savage places. Isn't that interesting, the way evil can blend right in? And sometimes we just don't see it because it just somehow seems part of the scenery.
The landscape.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. They stomp around and they're sniffing and they're looking for victims. Well, they're predators. Stephen Hawking, maybe you recall that name. He's a gentleman who's been confined to a wheelchair for most of his life because of ALS, but he's brilliant. He's the man who discovered the physics and the math that allowed scientists to talk about black holes and quarks, and he's a mathematical genius. But he has been quoted recently saying the two major threats to human existence are pollution and stupidity. And the giants that are not big and friendly, that are in this film, I think fit that category pretty well. And so, these, these big ugly ones, it seems to me, can serve as a metaphor for us for understanding the well-hidden and devious forces in our society which are gobbling up our children. These giants also are huge. Sometimes they have a worldwide network. Certainly the children that are sold into slavery throughout the world, that's a worldwide network in human trafficking. The children who are consumed by the drug culture, the children in various parts of the world who are used as mercenaries to fight dreadful wars in Africa, perhaps in Asia as well. They are powerful, these forces, and they are grotesque. And someone, the story tells us, needs to stop them. In the words of Sophie, who describes herself as outspoken and incorrigible. She's a 10-year-old girl who describes herself in that way. And she says someone must stop these negative forces. Now in the movie, it's the BFG, the big friendly giant, who is the hero. He walks funny, kind of glumps along. He talks funny, but he cares deeply, and he is willing to take risks for his beloved Sophie. And another part that I really like, that I think is important for us as grandparents, he is a dream meister. While others sleep, the big friendly giant travels all around the world, and he catches beautiful, luminescent colored dreams, and he preserves them in numerous vials and jars, and he labels them for future use. Who better to seek out wisdom, to protect it, and to share it than grandparents? Who better to utilize our own personal experience and power and wisdom and contacts, the people and things that we know? Who better to guard them, preserve them, share them with our young people than grandparents? Who better to protect our precious youngsters than grandparents? And even if you don't have a few of your own, you know there are people you can kind of round up and adopt. And keeping the dream alive of the infinite worth of each person, of the possibilities that hope can provide us with, of supporting the boldness that life requires, of encouraging a sense of adventure. These are all ways that we can keep the dream alive. Who can do that better than grandparents? So it seems to me that what we've got is a call to arms. Who will defeat the giants, the evil forces that are at work in our world? Well, it seems to me that our call to arms, even here, even now, is to be to do what we can. We can't do it all. But to do what we can, first of all, to love a child, to share whatever wisdom we've experienced, whatever wisdom God has given us, to be the protector of those children who are precious to us, and to be their trustworthy friend, to share our dreams, those that we've seen that have maybe bloomed and blossomed, but even those that we had to put on the shelf. I think how different perhaps the world might have been had Martin Luther King not given his dream speech. I have a dream that all children will be able to walk a path together. That's a paraphrase. Also, to help our children to claim and to be able to talk about their dreams. And to keep that dream alive. I suggest that these are all possibilities we can entertain as ways to defeat the evil giant, as ways to be protectors of children. Remember, Psalm 14 reminds us that it is the fool who says there is no God and is corrupt and does abominable things. We need champions. We need champions to defeat the giants. Maybe it'll be one of you, one way or another. Maybe I'll have a chance to. Amen.